Have you ever heard of the Hunger Games, A Handmaid's Tale, Station 11? These are all examples of dystopian novels, one of the most popular genres today. My name is Mohammed Chauhan, and today I will be comparing and exploring the similarities and differences between Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel and Moon of the Crested Snow by Wabka Shing Rice. For context, Moon of the Crested Snow follows an indigenous reserve cut off from communications and power, forced to live on the land and return to their hunting ancestry. It all changes, however, when an outsider finds their way in. One in particular, named Justin Scott, turns on the Res, the local name for their reserve, and forces control of his new supporters before getting dealt with by the main character Evan and his friends Isaiah and Tyler. Both Station 11 and Moon of the Crested Snow present a dystopian society wherein modern amenities cease to exist. This is done in both novels through the complexities of moral principles versus survival needs, order versus chaos, and the development of the main antagonists. There comes a time in both novels where characters have to make key decisions under the umbrella of moral principle versus survival needs. In The Moon of the Crested Snow, this is shown through the arrival of the outsiders in two completely different instances. The second time, when a group of 5 people came to ask for food and shelter, Chief Terry Meggins, who was already rationing for the whole reserve, replied, quote, "We have food for our community. You can appreciate that we are hungry here too," end quote. Upon further insisting, he more firmly this time says, quote, "I'm asking for your patience. We are a small community. We are already stretched thin," end quote. One can imagine how hard it would have been for a First Nations chief to refuse to help. Although, had the circumstances been normal, he would have taken them in a heartbeat, as is encouraged in Indigenous culture. Despite the warning, Justin Scott, who had already been taken in because of his large build, would have been of aid to them. Killed Mark Phillips, who was the leader of the 5 Southern, forcing the reserve to take them in, regardless, marking the start of Justin's tyranny. On the other hand, in Station 11, after the symphony leaves St. Deborah, they face the same kerfuffle. A 12-year-old stowaway girl named Eleanor was found riding with the symphony sometime after leaving the town. She explains, while crying, that she was set up to marry the prophet and had no choice but to escape. Eleanor also states that her parents are both dead and she has nowhere else to go. Hearing this, the symphony is left with a critical decision: whether to listen to their moral principles and take this girl in, making her a part of their group and saving her from the prophet, or risk being followed by the prophet's people, a fear they had since they left St. Deborah. Specifically, the quote seen on the screen now, evidently, the personalities of both novels decide to stick to the moral principles, and it ends badly for both of them. The symphony's decision to keep her ends up leading to the kidnapping and death of Dieter, one of the older members. Additionally, the primary complexity that can be seen throughout both books is the theme of order versus chaos. For one, both of these novels take place during a disaster, showing the strict contrasts between life deemed regular and life after the disaster. Once again, starting with The Moon of the Crested Snow, this isolation strengthened the already established order between the characters and the band members, who are the governing body of the reserve. They held communal meetings and sent out various notices throughout the community, such as the one on screen now. Moreover, the main character, Evan Whitescale, also personally delivered rations to each house in the reserve for the majority of the winter. This shows the mutual respect between the band and the characters, giving and not taking more than they need. This all changes, however, because after the murder of Justin, as spoken about before, the res slowly descends into chaos. Some people stick with Justin, who claims he knows a way to get food even after the rations run out. Others choose to keep faith in the band, who have fewer rations every weekly handout. Station 11 takes an opposite approach on this. In the first years after the flu, everything was dangerous and out of order. This is explicitly stated when the main character encountered a dangerous-looking man in year 20 after drawing their weapon. After realizing he meant no harm, Kirsten thinks about how much things had changed over those 20 years, as seen on screen now. The wording used in this quote insinuates that there is much more calmness, order, if you will, in the present day, and how much chaos there was 20 years ago at the start of the flu. There is also another instance where author St. John Mandel gives us the clearest description of the chaos that ensued right after the collapse, through the perspective of Jeevan, another character. This quote shows how much chaos there was at the start of the flu and how traumatic and horrible the situation must have been if people were literally getting killed for the limited supply in their backpack. Both quotes were combined show the chronic difference between the calmness and stillness of the years during which the book was set and the years following societal collapse. Adding on, order starts to develop as towns are created. While there isn't a specific quote regarding this, the main character Kirsten remembers settling in a town with her brother after walking for a few years. This means that the society bounced back rather quickly after the collapse and that the initial chaos had started to die down. On the topic of chaos, both novels build up and take out their main antagonist in the same way. Moon of the Crested Snow introduces Justin Scott, a southerner looking for refuge and eager to help the reserve succeed. He even goes as far as to beg, voice cracking, as he says on the quote on screen now. This eagerness from such a newcomer not only arouses suspicion from the other band members, but also from the reader. Unsure of what to make of it initially, Scott then starts pulling his weight, hunting and giving due respect to Chief Meggins, leading both Evan and the reader to think maybe he'll be useful after all. However, after he killed Mark Phillips, Justin starts using his strength to his advantage, taking control over the people living with him and hoarding all the firewood, even going as far as to threaten Evan and the band members when he realizes they have no food. Following this, the audience as well as the characters in the book start to realize that Justin is not a good person and that he has been power hungry from the beginning. These are the words of Megan Connor, who is the wife of Justin's right-hand man, Bradley. Justin is later killed when confronted by Evan and his friends, Taylor and Isaiah. Station 11 follows this pattern with its own antagonist, the Prophet, revealed near the end to have been Tyler, the son of an important character, Arthur Leander. When he is introduced, Tyler is seen as an innocent and unfortunate kid who has to live his life without his father, making him a sympathetic character. Even in Seven City Airport, it makes sense why Tyler stays to himself and only talks to his mom or reads from his Bible, as she was his only constant in his life, and the only adult around that made him that he fully trusted. However, just as with Justin Scott, readers start to realize that there is something off about Tyler, as he starts specifically reading out loud verses surrounding judgment and the apocalypse, primarily to those dead on the Air Gradia flight that was on the tarmac. Eventually, Tyler leaves the airport with his mother, and readers start to connect the dots, realizing that he is the Prophet. Both antagonists also meet the same demise at the climax of the novel, getting face to face with the protagonist about to kill them, and then getting killed themselves by their own people. In this case, Station 11, a little boy from Tyler's men, and from the Moon of the Crested Snow, it was Megan Connor. The dystopian societies in which both Station 11 and the Moon of the Crested Snow are set are homogeneous in the complexities and elements used in their portrayal, and decision concerning moral principles or survival needs seen in both books, where both books make the wrong choice and end up almost paying the price. However, both books differ in their portrayal of order versus chaos, with one flipping it around to start with chaos instead of order. Both novels, however, employ and develop their antagonists in similar ways, also killing them off in the climax when confronted by the main character. Thus, one can deduce that the reason dystopian fiction is so popular is that when compared to other dystopian novels, its ability to be so similar yet different at the same time.